So on this episode, well, with the thumbnail, you can probably tell this is going to be a very strange episode with a very strange concept, but I think it's pretty off the wall and pretty spicy, and maybe just a slight of a bit of annoying in there as well. Well, hopefully not the episode, but the actual deck itself. But regardless, to find out what in the world I'm talking about, well, let's jump into it to find out. So, this deck is built around one of the strangest commanders of all time with Karona, False God. She's a commander that came out way back in Scourge, which is right around the time I first started playing Magic, actually. Regardless, let's first jump into what this card does by reading its Oracle text. It's a 5/5 Avatar with haste that costs 1 and Wooburg, so one of each color. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player untaps Karona, False God and gains control of it. And whenever she attacks, creatures of the creature type of your choice get +3/+3 until end of turn. So a very strange commander that you are, well, probably not going to always have control over, because it's going to go to every single player at the beginning of their upkeep, and then they obviously can attack with it right away because of that haste and choose to pump whatever creature type they want. Now, giving your commander away generally is not a good thing for you, but in this case, that's pretty much exactly what we want to do, because this commander can do, well, all of this, and then some with the way that we have built this deck with a background tribal deck built around Karona, utilizing an absurd amount of backgrounds to make this commander do an absurd amount of things. Now, when I did say that this deck might be very off the wall, but also potentially a little annoying, that's because the card can end up looking like this. Again, backgrounds are a new type of card from Commander Legends Baldur's Gate, and basically they just add additional text to commanders that you own, and this can be a lot to keep track of. And the thing is, again, I did say commanders you own. It does specify in backgrounds commanders you own, not commanders you control. So not only do you have to keep track of this, but your opponents do as well, because again, you're going to be giving your commander to all of your opponents on their turns. So every little detail of this commander based on the number of backgrounds that you have in play has got to be kept track of, and everyone's got to do it. And yeah, that can be a little annoying. And of course, there are some incredibly powerful things that you can do with this commander, and some really crazy things that can happen with certain backgrounds in play. Now, is this the most powerful thing that you can do with backgrounds? No. I mean, it's definitely not. You usually don't want to give away a commander, but still, there's a lot of exciting things that you can do with it, a lot of unexpected things that you can do with it, and actually, we can kind of politic with this commander as well in a way. Well, hopefully we really can politic with the player to our left, mostly, to essentially get additional attacks from this commander to take other players out very quickly. And of course, we've got other ways to deter attacks against ourselves and actually encourage attacks against others, and we'll talk about those, well, with every other card in this episode, and we're going to break this episode down into different tactics to show off how this deck works and how we're going to win with it. And of course, outside of the commander, every single card in this deck is less than $1, so this is a very budget-friendly deck. And one last thing, make sure you keep in mind that if you are interested in this deck, check out the link in the description below. And now, with all of that said, let's jump into it. First up, there's Wayfarer's Bauble. That is so fun to say. Pay 2 tap, sacrifice, get a basic land into play tapped. And then Font of Fertility is basically an enchantment version of Wayfarer's Bauble. We pay 1 and a green to sacrifice it to do so. And then Search for Tomorrow is yet another fantastic turn 1 play. It's got to spend 2 for a green. It's going to get us a base going to play untapped. Moving on, of course, we got some fantastic 2-mana ramp spells with Rampant Growth, Secure Tribe Elder, and Edge of Autumn, each of which is going to get us a basic land into play tapped. Secure Tribe Elder with the sacrifice to do so, and Edge of Autumn we can only do so if we've got 4 or fewer lands. But later in the game, we can also cycle this away by sacrificing a land to replace it with something else. Up next, we've got Fertile Ground, which can enchant a land and have it tap for an additional mana of any color. Cultivate, which can get us 2 lands, 1 comes into our hand and 1 goes into play tapped. And Grow from the Ashes, which can get us 2 basics into play untapped if we kicked it. Speaking of untapped, next up we've got Harrow, which makes a sacrifice 1 land to get 2 basics into play untapped at instant speed. And then Springbloom Druid is essentially a Harrow on a body, though the lands do come into play tapped. Moving on, Rip Reaver Druid has a very interesting ETB. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent can search the library for the 3 basic land cards. Each who does needs to put one of those lands into play tapped under your control, and the rest tapped onto the battlefield under their control. So with this, there can definitely be some politics involved. And speaking of politics, we can also help out another player to help ourselves out with a card like Verdant Mastery. Because with this, we can actually pay 2 less than its actual mana cost to cast the spell, and if we do, we get 4 basic land cards from our library, and 1 goes into play tapped on our opponent's control, and we get 2 into play tapped under our control, and the other 1 into our hand. So with this kind of a card, it can be as simple as making a deal with someone, be like, hey, first time you get my commander, because you're going to eventually swing at someone else. And if so, you get the land. Regardless, some cards that prize value without having to make a deal are cards like Eureka Moment and Urban Evolution. Eureka Moment is going to draw us 2 cards, and we get a land from our hand into play tapped at instant speed, and Urban Evolution is a sorcery that's going to draw us 3 and let us play additional land this turn. So on top of ramping, these can help us dig deeper into our deck and hopefully get some more exciting backgrounds. And with that said, let's jump into those backgrounds, see what exactly our commander can do. So first up, let's talk about Cultists of the Absolute, a legendary enchantment background, which I'll probably just say once because all these are legendary enchantment backgrounds, and this one says, commander creatures you own get +3/+3, have flying, death touch, ward, pay 3 life, and at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. So first up, this turns our commander into an 8/8 flyer with death touch and some protection again with that ward, pay 3 life. And again, on that attack, you can choose Avatar to give all avatars +3/+3 until end of turn. So then our commander has 11 powers and is a flyer. So yeah, essentially can be a 2-shot KO, a very deadly creature with just this one background in play that costs 1 mana. Now, obviously, with that, there is somewhat of a downside again, because at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature might be a bad thing in some circumstances, but in others, actually, well, it could actually help us out. Being forced to actually sacrifice our commander before actually giving it away can be a good thing in some circumstances. Again, we've got plenty of ramp in this deck, so we can just get our commander back out and swing again away with it, and not exactly share it with the table. And as you'll see as we go through these backgrounds, some of these, like this one, are pretty situational on when exactly you want to get these out and when you don't. So just keep that in mind. Regardless, next up, how about Agent of the Shadow Thieves, which has commander creatures you own have whenever this creature attacks a player. If no opponent has more life than that player, put a +1 counter on this creature, gains death touch and indestructible until end of turn. So this can help our commander hit even harder and protect it in combat. And again, if our opponents are incentivized to attack the player with the most life, then it's protected during their turns as well. Just keep in mind again, sometimes that might be you, but again, that adds to the hilarity of this deck. Regardless, Criminal Pass is another one that can up out certain decks. It says commander creatures you own have Menace, and this creature gets +X/+0, where X the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Menace can really help our commander get through, and again, with certain decks, they can hit really hard with the amount of creatures they're going to have in their graveyard, and turn this commander into essentially a 1 or 2 shot KO. Moving on though, Master Chef has commander creatures you own have this creature into the battlefield with additional counter on it, and other creatures you control into the battlefield with additional +1 counter on them. And speaking of counters, how about Noble Heritage, which says commander creatures you own have when this creature enters the battlefield, and at the beginning of your upkeep, each player may put 2 +1 counters on a creature they control. For each opponent who does, you gain protection from that player until your next turn. This one can lead to some really exciting and unexpected circumstances as, the commander gets passed around the table. And speaking of exciting, how about Raised by Giants, which can make this commander absolutely massive. It says commander creatures you own have base power toughness 10/10 and are giants in addition to the other types. So this on its own essentially makes our commander into a 2-shot KO, again, assuming that with that +3/+3, the player chooses Avatar to pump it. Yeah, so basically our commander then becomes, a 13/13 with haste on attack? And of course, we can pretty easily turn that into a 1-shot KO, which we'll talk about in a second. First up, there's Tavern Brawler. Commander creatures you own have at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. That creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is that card's mana value. You may play that card this turn. So this can end up pumping for a random amount, which sometimes can be quite a bit, and again, gives some additional temporary card advantage. But of course, if we really want to hit hard with this commander, Flaming Fist is incredible with that. Commander creatures you don't have whenever this creature attacks against double strike until end of turn. Again, with this and a variety of other pump effects that we have, like Cultists of the Absolute or Raised by Giants, etc., 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 our commander is a 1-shot KO. And a hasty 1-shot KO at that, and potentially an unblockable one if we've got Sword Coast Sailor. which says commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, this creature can't be blocked this turn. Again, if we are able to politic, we might be able to take out a player in a turn with the help of another player, or even multiple players in a single turn. That being said, obviously could backfire on us as well, and that's kind of the fun of this deck. Regardless, we've got other ways to generate value with this commander with cards like Guild Artisan, Popular Entertainer, and Candlekeep Sage. Guild Artisan says, commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, you create 2 treasure tokens. Popular Entertainer says, commander creatures you own have, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, go target creature that player controls. And Candlekeep Sage says, commander creatures you own have, when this creature enters or leaves the battlefield, draw a card. Now we've gone through a ton of backgrounds, and of course this commander can do a lot of exciting things. That being said, we are not done just yet. Because we're also going to be running cards like Veteran Soldier, Feywild Visitor, and Cloakwood Hermit. Veteran Soldier says, commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent had more life than that player for each opponent, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token that's tapped and attacking that player. And then Feywild Visitor can also make us some tokens. It says, whenever one or more non-token creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you create a 1/1 blue fairy dragon creature token with flying. And then Cloakwood Hermit says, commander creatures you own have at the beginning of your end step, if a creature card was put in your graveyard from anywhere this turn, create 2 tapped 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, there is a ton of things that people have to pay attention to and keep track of once you get a lot of these backgrounds in play, so that can be really fun for everyone. And one player having to remember triggers is one thing, but when you've got all 4 players having to remember all these triggers, it can be quite fun, let's just say. Moving on, Dragon Cultist says, commander creatures you own have at the beginning of your end step, if a source you control dealt 5 or more damage this turn, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. And with all these creature tokens, while a card like Inspiring Leader can really help us out on top of our commander's pump effect, which I probably should have already mentioned. Yeah, I mean, if we make a lot of creature tokens, we can obviously pump them a ton with that, +3/+3, but Inspiring Leader says, creature tokens you control get +2/+2. So yeah, that can be a massive pump effect for our army, and we'll talk about here in a bit, but we've got other ways to make tokens as well. Regardless, Hardy Outlander has, commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, another target creature you control gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is this creature's power. Again, we've got quite a few ways to make our commander massive, so yeah, this can pump another creature a ton as well. Next up, we can also utilize those tokens with something like Street Urchin, though, which says, commander creatures you own have, pay 1 sacrifice another creature or an artifact. This creature deals 1 damage to any target. And then Agent of the Iron Throne can also punish players. It says, commander creatures you own have, whenever an artifact or creature controls spin a grave from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. So again, with our commander getting passed around the table, this can make life totals go down quite quickly. And players can also take advantage of ETBs with Far Traveler, which says, commander creature you own have at the beginning of your end step, exile to 1 target tapped creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control. And finally, we're also going to be running Scion of Halaster and Shameless Charlatan. Scion of Halaster says, commander creatures you own have, the first time you draw a card each turn, instead look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them in your graveyard and the other one back on top of your library, then draw a card. So this can be a great way to help with card selection, and Shameless Charlatan is quite the fun one with this commander, and you need to be really careful when you play this though. It says, commander creatures you own have, pay 2 to blue. This creature becomes a copy of another target creature. Now, keep in mind that if you are going to play this and you don't want to lose control of your commander basically until, it goes away, you need to make sure you actually activate this and make your commander into a copy of another creature right away, because if you don't and your opponent maybe has mana for this, they could do that and then they just get to keep your commander. So obviously this can be a great way if you want to close out a game to just keep control of your commander and make it into a very powerful other creature potentially, but regardless, again, then it will stop getting passed around, so keep that in mind. Now again, is this the perfect commander for a background tribal build if you want to be the most effective? No, but is it quite funny and fun to be able to just put out a ton of backgrounds and have players do crazy things with your commander? Absolutely. Until you get Shameless Charlatan out, and then you make your commander a copy of something absolutely massive and have fun taking over from there. Regardless, now that we've talked about all these amazing backgrounds, how are we actually going to get to them? Well, first up, we've got a fantastic card to help us out with. That would be Golden Pig of this stack, which is, of course, the #1 card out of our 99. And the Golden Pig for this stack is Plea for Guidance. It's a sorcery for 5 and a white, and it says, search your library for the 2 enchantment cards, reveal them, and put them in your hand, then shuffle your library. So this is a very simple spell, but a very effective one in this deck because it can get us the exact enchantments that we need, especially including backgrounds. Again, if we really need to in certain circumstances, this can turn our commander into a 2 or even 1-shot KO. It can get us the perfect backgrounds that we need for the situation that we are in, or just whatever backgrounds we really want to play around with. So yeah, for a build like this, Plea for Guidance is most definitely the golden pig of this deck. Regardless, we also have some other ways to dig into our deck and to help our opponents potentially do the same with cards like Whispering Madness, Imposing Grandeur, and Magus of the Wheel. Whispering Madness is going to make each player discard their hand, then draw cards equal the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way, and it's got Cipher, which means we can basically exile this spell and encode onto a creature. Whenever that creature deals coverage to a player, its controller may cast the copy of the encoded card without paying its mana cost, which of course can get really spicy when you cipher this onto your commander, which gets passed around and can, just get through on multiple players with each stripper on the table. Next up, how about Imposing Grandeur, which says each player may discard their hand and draw cards equal the greatest mana value of a commander they own on the battlefield or in the command zone. So discard, draw 6, yes, sign me up for that. Or how about drawing 7 with Magus of the Wheel, which is basically a wheel on a creature, pay 1 in a red, tap, sacrifice Magus of the Wheel, each player discards their hand, then draws 7 cards. Moving on though, how about Tales of the Ancestors, which says each player with fewer cards in hand than the player with the most in hand draws cards equal to the difference, and of course we can foretell this for 1 and a blue. So if one player is really far ahead, well, we can set everyone up to their level, at least when it comes to the number of cards in their hand, and yeah, again, this is a card that we can use to politic with. And speaking of making players draw cards, well, we've got Fevered Visions, which says at the beginning of each player's end step, that player draws a card. If the player is your opponent and has 4 or more cards in hand, Fevered Visions deals 2 damage to them. So there's a slight price to actually draw those cards, well, at least for your opponents, but not for you. And finally, we've got some instant speed draw spells with Fact or Fiction, Pull for Tomorrow, and Return of the Wild Speaker. Fact or Fiction is going to make us really top 5 cards of our library, and opponent separates those cards into 2 piles, and we get 1 pile in our hand, the other into our graveyard. And then Pull for Tomorrow is finally budget friendly. Once again, it's been quite a long time. Draw X cards, then discard a card at instant speed for X blue. Next up though, Return of the Wild Speaker is an incredible card in this deck. It's an instant that costs 4 to green and says choose 1. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. Again, even at a base level with our commander, we can easily draw 8 cards with this, again, by choosing, avatar when we attack with our commander to draw 8. Again, our commander is an avatar, not a human. Or again, if we have a token army, we can choose to pump them and give all of our creatures +3/+3 until end of turn at instant speed for a fantastic combat trick. And speaking of tricks, we've got plenty of ways to help make things go the way that we want to in a lot of situations with cards like Commit to Memory, Release the Wind, and Depart the Realm. Commit's going to put target spell or non-land permanent into its owner's library second from the top, and then Memory is going to make each player shuffle their hand and graveyard in their library, then draw 7 cards. Release the Wind is a very effective card with this commander. It says exile target non-land permanent for as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may cast without paying its mana cost. So if we really don't want to share our commander with certain players, we can just temporarily exile it and then recast it on our turn and swing hastily. Or we can actually just bounce it back to our hand with Depart the Realm, which says return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and it's got a foretell cost of a blue. Another option, though, is to tap it down, well, and basically everything else with Bluster Squall. It's got an overload cost of 3 and a blue, so if we do that, we tap every single creature we don't control. This can be used in a lot of ways. Obviously, it can help our creatures get through, or, if we've got an opponent that we're working with that is attacking with our commander and they're attacking someone else, we can tap down every single creature on the board we don't control to help them get through. Speaking of which, there's Naya Charm, which says choose 1 and deal 3 damage target creature, return target card from a graveyard to its owner's hand, or tap all creatures target player controls. This is a very flexible card that can help us out in a ton of scenarios, and yeah, tapping down someone's creatures can be deadly. Speaking of which, how about Corridor Doomscourge, which has when enters the battlefield until your next turn, creatures opponents control attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. On top of that, whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Basically, this is a fantastic goat effect that, is going to force players to attack and attack each other, including with our commander that we are so generously passing around. We also have some other ways to mess with our opponent's combats with cards like Aetherize, Domineering Will, and Reigns of Power. Aetherize is going to bounce all attacking creatures back to their owner's hand, so this can really put someone at a massive disadvantage if they swing out. Domineering Will says target player gains control of up to 3 target non-attacking creatures until end of turn. Untap those creatures they block this turn if able. This can be a great combat trick that can essentially be a removal spell as well. And then Reigns of Power says untap all creatures you control and all creatures target opponent controls. You and that opponent each gain control of all creatures the other controls until end of turn. Those creatures gain haste until end of turn. So essentially we can swap armies with someone else and really utilize this well as a fantastic way to finish out a game, or again as a great combat trick where we just utilize other creatures for blocking. Regardless, when it comes to these kinds of cards, once opponents know that we have these cards and we can start using them, they're going to be really hesitant to actually attack us lest we wreck their board. But of course, we can also mess with their plans with something like Mob Rule, which is an incredible card in a lot of scenarios. Choose one, gain control of all creatures with power 4 greater until end of turn, untap those creatures to gain haste until end of turn, or we can do the exact same thing with creatures with power 3 or less until end of turn. Speaking of which, there's an Necrotic Hex, which says each player sacrifices 6 creatures. You create 6 tap 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. So this can wipe away essentially the entire board and also leave us with an army that again we can pump with our commander when we get it back out and swing for that +3/+3. Which of course with those 2/2s, that's what, 30 damage in total just from this one spell? But of course, we can dish out even more damage and punishment and pain with Azorius Predation, which says for each creature your opponents control, create a 4/4 green beast creature token. Each of those beasts fights a different one of those creatures. So this can be a great, essentially one-sided board wipe that can take out a lot of creatures and leave us with a beast army that of course gets even bigger when we attack with our commander and we choose beast for, that +3/+3, so some 7/7s coming at everyone. But moving on, finally we've got Martial Coup, Aether Gale, and Crush Contraband. Martial Coup says put X 1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So again, essentially a board wipe that can wipe out a ton of creatures, leave us with a token army that we can then pump to hit for a ton. And then Aether Gale is a very flexible card, returns 6 target and online permanents to owner's hand, so we can bounce a variety of things, including our commander, if we need to get it back to our hand. Finally though, there's a fantastic removal spell with Crush Contraband. Choose one or both, exile target artifact or exile target enchantment. But now that we've talked about every single non-land card in this deck, let's jump into the lands. First up, we've got Command Tower, which can tap for any of our colors, Exotic Orchard, which you usually can most of the time, and Path of Ancestry, got into the battlefield tap, can tap for any of our colors, and when we cast our commander, we scry 1. Next up, there's Ash Barrens, which we can basic land cycle away for a basic land, Evolving Wilds and Timberwolf Expanse, which we can both tap and sacrifice to get a basic into play tap. And in a somewhat similar way, we've got the new Capenna lands, which each enter the battlefield are sacrificed, and we go get 1 of 3 basics into play tapped, and we gain 1 life. Moving on, we've got 3 lands that can actually help ramp us by getting us 2 lands into play with Crow's Verge, Mirror Landscape, and Blighted Woodland. And then we're going to be running each of the Thriving lands, which each enter the battlefield. We choose a color other than their color, and we can tap for either the chosen color or the color they naturally have. And of course, finally, the rest of the deck is made up of basics, with all the basics included: Forest, Islands, Plains, Swamp, and Mountain. But now that we've talked about every single card in this deck, let's talk about the price. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, this deck is very budget friendly. Even though our commander itself is like $4 or $5, the rest of the deck is incredibly budget friendly, with every single card in the deck being less than $1. So we've got an estimated cost of just $24.66. And keep in mind that includes the basics at 10 cents a piece, so if you've already got those basic lands, there's some extra savings there. And speaking of some extra potential savings, you may be able to save even more by buying this deck on TCG Player and utilizing heavily played and damaged cards, which of course need a home too. Though, do keep in mind that this estimated cost does not include the cost of shipping, which might vary depending upon where you live. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.